Kusunoki Masashige stood in the midst of battle, surrounded by chaos. His enemies outnumbered him, yet he stood firm, loyal to his cause. Even in defeat, Kusunoki made loss look like heroism. His loyalty turned every retreat into a legend. But this story didn't begin on the battlefield. It began with a dream of Emperor Go-Daigo. In that dream, he saw a loyal general, a man named Kusunoki Masashige, who would rise to serve him. The emperor sent for him. And that is where the legend truly began. Word of his name began to spread among the generals, whispers of a man destined for greatness. The emperor's message soon reached a quiet village where Kusunoki Masashige lived in peace. He listened carefully as the messenger delivered Emperor Go-Daigo's call. Without hesitation, Kusunoki accepted. He began preparing himself, moving with calm purpose toward his duty. Before long, he stood before the emperor, composed, respectful, and ready to serve the cause that fate had chosen for him. The emperor spoke of his vision to restore Japan to imperial rule, but the Kamakura shogunate's grip on the land was absolute. Their samurai guarded every province, their banners shadowed every road. From the capital to the smallest village, their power reached all. Even the emperor's word carried little weight beneath their rule. The shogunate commanded armies, wealth, and fear. Their will was law. Go-Daigo dreamed of breaking those chains, of returning Japan to its rightful throne. To challenge such power, he needed men of unshakable loyalty and courage. Men like Kusunoki Masashige. And so, he called upon him to rise against the might of the Kamakura shogunate. After meeting with Emperor Go-Daigo, Kusunoki Masashige returned to his village. The peaceful life he once knew now felt distant, replaced by the weight of duty and the vision of a united Japan. He moved steadily through the quiet streets. Kusunoki knew that to challenge the Kamakura shogunate, he could not fight alone. He began seeking allies, men and women who shared the emperor's vision, who were willing to stand against the shogunate's vast armies. And so began the formation of his army, loyal, determined, and ready to follow a general whose courage matched the enormity of the task before him. The Kamakura shogunate did not remain idle. As soon as news of Kusunoki Masashige's uprising reached them, they began mustering their forces. Armies from across the provinces were called to march. Soldiers drilled and ordered to suppress the rebellion in the mountains, where Kusunoki had gathered his small but determined force. The shogunate's army was vast, heavily outnumbering Kusunoki's men. Meanwhile, inside his stronghold, Kusunoki prepared his defenses, planning each move carefully. The Kamakura shogunate's army had arrived, and the siege of Akasaka Castle began. Kusunoki Masashige's forces were heavily outnumbered. Only a few thousand men faced the shogunate's hundreds of thousands. Despite this, the castle's defenders fought with skill and courage. Archers and garrison troops inflicted heavy losses, forcing the shogunate's army to regroup under the night sky. As darkness fell, Kusunoki gathered 100 mounted men and launched a bold counterattack, striking with precision and disrupting the shogunate's formations. For a time, their tactics reduced the numerical advantage of the enemy and caused significant casualties. But the overwhelming size of the shogunate's forces could not be overcome. Eventually, the siege took its toll, and Akasaka Castle fell into the hands of the shogunate. Even in defeat, Kusunoki's bravery and strategic skill became legend. The Kamakura shogunate captured Emperor Go-Daigo and sent him into exile. Yet his dream did not end there. Kusunoki Masashige had escaped, and news of the emperor's exile reached him. He did not falter. The rebellion continued, guided by the orders and encouragement of Prince Morinaga, who urged Kusunoki to keep fighting in the emperor's name. Kusunoki turned to cunning and unconventional tactics. He pioneered the use of guerrilla warfare, striking the shogunate forces where they least expected. and legends say he employed stealthy operatives to target enemy generals, a tactic that would later inspire ninja strategies. These clever moves enraged the shogunate, who now saw Kusunoki not only as a loyal warrior, but as a brilliant and dangerous strategist. They vowed to crush him. The Kamakura shogunate, determined to crush Kusunoki Masashige once and for all, gathered an even larger army than before. They marched toward Chihaya Castle, located in Kawachi Province, prepared to lay siege to the stronghold. Kusunoki received word of the approaching force. He moved swiftly, organizing his soldiers and preparing every defense the castle could offer. Walls were reinforced, barricades set, and traps readied. Every tactic, every strategy in Kusunoki's mind, every lesson from past battles was brought into play. The defenders of Chihaya knew they faced overwhelming odds, but under Kusunoki's leadership, they steeled themselves to protect the castle and defy the shogunate's might. During the battle, the shogunate army froze in fear at what they faced. Death and chaos swept through their ranks, and their losses were staggering. By nightfall, they were forced to retreat and regroup, shaken to their core. When dawn came, they returned for round 2, expecting to overwhelm the castle. But Kusunoki Masashige had anticipated them. Hot boiling water poured from the walls. Archers rained death upon the enemy, and every trap was in place, ready to strike. The castle defenses were alive with deadly precision, every move calculated to crush the attackers. Kusunoki himself appeared on the battlefield, leading his soldiers with unmatched courage and skill. Strike after strike, he drove back the shogunate forces, turning their fear into rout. In the end, the shogunate was defeated, their mighty army humbled. Through brilliant strategy and fearless leadership, Kusunoki Masashige had turned impossible odds into legendary victory. The shogunate withdrew, battered and humiliated, their losses heavy and their pride shattered. But they would not be defeated so easily. Under the command of their high-ranking general, Ashikaga Takauji, the shogunate began to regroup. He was given the full strength of their forces, trained soldiers, supplies, and the resources to raise an army far larger than before. Every preparation was made for the next assault, and the shadow of their overwhelming power loomed once more over Kusunoki Masashige and his defenders. Ashikaga Takauji was a cunning and ambitious general. He realized that the tide of power had shifted. The emperor and his loyal general Kusunoki Masashige now held the upper hand. In a bold move, Takauji betrayed the Kamakura shogunate and joined forces with the emperor and Kusunoki. Together, their combined strength and strategy brought the shogunate to its knees. Over time, the Kamakura shogunate was destroyed. Its rule ended forever, and the emperor began to establish his resolutions. Yet even as the victory was celebrated, some of the samurai leaders found themselves annoyed, angered by the new order, their ambitions and pride challenged once again. The peaceful period of the Kinmu restoration was short-lived. The emperor held the greatest power in the land, but Ashikaga Takauji was not satisfied. He raised a rebellion, initially defeated and driven away, but soon many samurai and generals regrouped under his command, marching once again to challenge the emperor. Kusunoki Masashige counseled the emperor to use guerrilla tactics, to fight smart against the larger force. But the emperor had other plans. He insisted on facing Takauji's army head-on, with a much smaller force. The stage was set for the Battle of Minatogawa, Kusunoki's small army standing against an overwhelmingly large shogunate force in open battle. Courage against impossible odds. The battle raged with unstoppable ferocity. Thousands of soldiers clashed on both sides, and many great generals fell on the field. In the midst of the chaos, Kusunoki Masashige saw the truth of the fight. Defeat was inevitable. He saw the end of the army he had so carefully built, the collapse of his strategies, and the failure born from the emperor's decision to face the overwhelming force head-on. Kusunoki Masashige stood in the midst of battle, surrounded by chaos. His enemies outnumbered him, yet he stood firm, loyal to his cause. A few hundred, maybe fewer, managed to slip away from the slaughter. Kusunoki, his brother, and the small band that remained regrouped outside the chaos. They knew there was no escape from their fate. To preserve their honor and the cause they had fought for, they chose a final act of loyalty. Kusunoki and his companions prepared for seppuku, a deliberate, honorable end rather than living under shame. They faced death with calm resolve, declaring that even if 1,000 lives were demanded of them, they would die the same way for the same cause.